Hello and welcome to today's interview. My name is Claudia Chapman. I am a women's empowerment coach, sexual trauma coach, Kundalini yoga teacher, and Reiki healer. And today I am interviewing the amazing Stacey Landau. And this is a series of interviews of healers, coaches, and therapists, way showers, and intuitives. And this is a interview series to get to know the women behind our businesses and what motivates us. In a world of chaos and confusion, these women are part of our lives and vital part of our lives, and I aim to get to know these women a little better. So yes, I am interviewing the amazing Stacey Landau today, and I'd love her to introduce herself. So hello Stacey, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to chat. So who am I? I am a breathwork teacher. I'm a breath, body, mind teacher, and I'm a yoga therapist. I've done I've studied a lot of other healing modalities along the way. And really, I think today I combine all of the modalities that I have experienced, practiced, learnt into my offerings.
Wow, that's fabulous. Can you tell me a little bit, yeah, just about, what's your why? Why do you do what you do? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I haven't been in the wellbeing field the whole of my career. I started out actually in corporate. So had no idea when I was younger what I wanted to do. I was very good at languages, and it was okay, what do I do with them effectively? And I never really liked sport, to be quite honest, either. There were only a few things I liked. But I started practicing karate, funnily enough. And after a few years, I was really starting to struggle with some injuries. And I thought, okay, I need to find something else to keep myself moving. That was my entry point as such. And I went along to a yoga class, fell into a yoga class, loved it. And then when I got pregnant and I was practicing pregnancy yoga, it was literally at that point that I thought, this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is what I want to be doing. So once I'd had my son, I decided that I was going to train as a yoga teacher. And we're talking over 20 years ago now. And that is how my journey started. And it's just taken me into so many different areas. And I'm still training.
Yeah, we're always still training, aren't we? We're always trying to get more and more juiciness into our business. So what is it? So you do, so you're a breathwork teacher as well. So what makes you what made you study breathwork separately from yoga? Because it's really interesting, isn't it, that breathwork is coming through as a separate modality, even though breathwork is a major part of yoga and what we're taught as yoga teachers. But breathwork is becoming a separate, independent modality. Can you tell me, like, a little bit of why? Is it because it has something different about it? What is it that made you do the breath work?
Yes. I mean, as you quite rightly said, pranayama, breath work, however we want to use those words, is the fourth limb of yoga. So, and I was always taught that every movement effectively is led by breath. So breath is always, or has always underpinned my own practice in some form or another. Pranayama breathing exercises, I struggled with more, despite the fact that my teacher would always encourage me. I would practice, but I wasn't quite there with my whole being. It was, okay, I need to do this. And then in 2017, I got really ill, very ill, very quickly. And I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune condition. And I couldn't move. I physically couldn't move. I was on my knees. I was in, you know, was experienced terrible pain, inflammation. And it was, okay, what do I do? Because my physical practice went flying out the window. And with that challenge, it was, okay, what are you going to do with yourself now? And so then it was, okay, how do I explore within the modality of yoga, breath work, yoga nidra, deep relaxation, etc., to try and calm my nervous system, to help me sleep better, to help manage the pain that I was experiencing. And I went into all of those practices. But I also then, because of that experience, felt that I really wanted to take a deep dive into, shall we say, the Western viewpoint also of breath work. And I'll say that quite loosely because I do feel that so many of the practice, even that we see, for example, in the modern way of teachings, comes from my perspective, also from the yoga pranayama practices. They may be packaged differently, they may be being taught differently, and maybe science is also teaching us more what the yogis intuitively knew. So for me, it was about how can I embrace and learn as much as I can, experience as much as I can. And I think I really felt through that challenging time that this is where my soul lies. This is where actually this is what I'm supposed to really be doing. And I've always felt that anyway within yoga, because I've always worked therapeutically. So I've always worked with communities such as stroke, Parkinson's, cancer, etc. And then I knew that when this happened to me, how can I then use this also to help others? So I hope that answers
Mm.
fairly completely.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't expect that answer because the answer I kind of expected is because the other reason I think that breath work has become so popular is because it's accessible. So for people who wouldn't usually go to a yoga class, they might go to a breathwork class. And interestingly, I find that people who, for instance, want to give up smoking, or they want to run faster, or they just want to have more life force energy when you connect it to the Reiki. For me, I'm a Reiki healer. So, people want more life force energy, and the breath becomes something that people want to learn more about and how they can control their lives through it, and how they can, overcome instantaneously difficulties. So I tend to offer to my clients to like take the breath work into moments of difficulty. So what's really interesting then is that you say that you got an autoimmune disease and you were illness and you weren't able to move. So for you, the breath work became a really integral part. So sometimes the universe, gives us these tests to find out, okay, so in one side is can be seen deemed as negative, but on the other side it's a regrowth, it's a rebirth for you.
100%.
So it's kind of like probably gave you the gold, as it were, to then go out and teach people with autoimmune diseases how to illnesses. I don't like the word dis-ease, if you like, in the body to breathe. So I presume that's what you do now. You spend a lot of time with people with autoimmune disease, or
I find that, yes, that I'm attracting people who have, for example, often we do autoimmune conditions, whether it's through a conversation or they'll find me or something else. And that's probably because, as you said, I so resonate and have experienced that myself. Um, yeah.
yeah, and it's really interesting. Like I have a really big sort of pull towards the autoimmune diseases because illnesses. I hate what word I hate disease. It's such a horrible word, isn't it? But because doing some work on trauma, doing more investigations into trauma and using trauma in the nervous system, and realizing. I don't know if you're into the likes of Gabor Mate and Peter Levine and etc. and Bessel van der Kolk, the body keeps the score,
Yeah.
that they talk about autoimmune disease being something that's caused by trauma. So, do you feel that that's true? Do you feel that that might have been the case for you? That
I,
that
I
you,
do actually. I think, firstly, I remember that actually I got psoriasis as a child. So when we have one autoimmune condition, we then are predisposed, although I didn't realize this until I got unwell, but we are predisposed to get another. But coming back to what you were saying, I think with anything that happens to us, and I apologize if this doesn't quite come over the way that I wanted to, but I feel that trauma, if we use that word loosely, and I'm using that word maybe in the sense of experiences that we have felt are or have impacted us so greatly to create some kind of shift within ourselves, and they've been traumatic, can then cause something to happen within us physically as well, of course. You know, there's an expression, our emotions are expressed somewhere. And for me, that expression is in the body. So I do think that trauma has a big role to play in any kind of condition. And I have actually listened to Gabor, and I did a short course with him as well, actually. And he did speak about that connection. And when he did, I could really resonate and see how, for example, with myself, and also the fact that, for example, I would always swallow, always keep down. I wouldn't voice, I wouldn't express, I wouldn't share. And I think this kind of behavior is taking everything, I'm going to use the word, all the shit down instead of letting it out. And then we think about autoimmune conditions, some of them are about the body actually attacking itself. So, in a very roundabout way, in a very long way, yes, I agree totally.
No, and that's, yeah, yes is it would be, that's a great explanation, as someone who's actually experienced it and experienced the studies of it as well. And I'm finding it absolutely fascinating, this whole idea. And what you described is something that just really resonates with me, is that swallowing down, that women swallow down, and when they swallow down, they push everything down into the lower chakras, and then it becomes dis-ease. And it's something I describe a lot through my goddess chakra dance, or through all my work, the Find Your Inner Goddess method, is that we do, when we close the throat chakra, and women should be seen and not heard. Back in the day, we had the skull's bridle. Women were actually put in a mask for talking too much, or for expressing themselves, or put in a mental institution for going through menopause. So it's no wonder that when we shut down our voice, when we don't speak out, when we don't mantra, when we don't ask for what we want, then it comes and it goes into the lower chakras, and it sits in the areas that are our foundations, our rootedness, our grounding, our safety. So when you're talking about safety earlier, well, we didn't talk about it in the discussion before we came on. We talked about safety in the body, and if we don't feel safe in our bodies, then we get dis-ease, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
So
think for a very long time, for different reasons, and not having even understood that, I didn't feel safe in my body, because I distinctly now remember, and I'll share with you, on certain occasions when I would literally feel that I was somewhere else, that I wasn't here in my body. It's taken me a long time to feel a lot more grounded, if we use that word, of really being in my own body, and not just actually running away, because it was so much easier to run away and not be present for whatever reason.
yeah, and I hear that so much from women, that they're disconnected from their bodies, and they say they can't actually feel their bodies, and to the point that, especially the younger women I see, they can't, they disconnect so much from their bodies that they don't know when they're hungry, they don't know when they're thirsty, they don't know, yeah, they literally don't know when to eat, they don't know what they feel at all, and it's kind of putting them back into these back into their body is in the work that I do really is quite extraordinary, because as someone who hasn't experienced that myself, actually hearing it and feeling into it is really is you know a, a, a very big thing for a lot of women, but especially young women, I feel. But it's, yes, disconnection from the body is yeah, and reconnecting to our bodies is just so important. And I work very much through the chakras and going through the elements of the mind, body, spirit, the whole package of that, because it's not one thing that's gonna bring us back into our bodies. It can be different experiences. And talking about that, is that what you said about you feel like out here somewhere, sort of floating above your body. And it reminds me of something I heard Peter Levine talking about. When he created somatic experiencing, he had a car crash, and in that car crash, he left his body, and he was rising above his body. And it was when somebody actually came. No, I think was it a car crash? Yes, or was it a car crash, or I can't remember what it was. But I remember someone came and they held his hand, his physical body, and that's when he came back into his body. And he describes that moment that that person was holding his hands. Um, as the beginning of his aha for his somatic experiencing, and how he then went on to develop somatic experiencing, which is all about reconnecting to the body,
Yes,
and that we need that co-regulation, either with someone else or within ourselves. So we are so disconnected from ourselves in the society that we live in due to
100%.
so many things, right? Yeah. So what you're describing is this sort of awareness that we need to be, back into co-regulation. And obviously the pandemic has caused, babies being born into a time where they couldn't co-regulate or see the faces of their friends and family. We're living now in a time where more and more dysregulation is coming through. I kind of feel like that's a part of what you're saying.
It is, and I think it's a double-edged coin, because I think that trauma can pull us out of our body and then can lead to some kind of dis-ease in the body. And then on the other hand, can we take the opportunity, which I think really is probably what happened to me, because I haven't had those experiences for a long time. When we do become so unwell, the body effectively is then screaming at us. And then can we take that opportunity, despite the screaming of the body, despite pain or whatever it might be, to come back, or to see this as an opportunity to really come back and reconnect with the body, maybe in a different way. So I think it's, again, how we can meet this head on, because I've also met within my work people who, for example, when they've had or had certain conditions, have disconnected at that time from the body because it's too painful. The body actually is almost that expression of pain. And then looking at that pain or trying to go into that pain is all too much. So it's very much of, how can we look at this? Can we try and then see this really as maybe an opportunity, maybe a chance to rediscover in a different way what the body is trying to say to us, and how we can experience our own body in a different way.
Yeah, I mean that's so true. So it's both ways, and both. It's not like it's no one size fits all. So, Peter Levine's experience was good to come back into his body, and what you're describing is that actually sometimes people leave their bodies but yeah, to release the pain. Yeah.
Well, I think to cope almost.
Yes, but that, I suppose that is the same thing in a way. Actually, it's like you do leave your body to cope, and we're kind of trying to get people to come back into their bodies to cope. So Tell me a bit about your work. Tell me a bit about like who you work with, how you work. Do you hold regular yoga classes? Do you hold regular breath work? Do you work one to one? Do you work in groups? Tell me a bit about how you work.
You probably have to remind me of some of the questions as we go through.
Okay, just how
Men-
you work. Who do you work with, and how do you work?
Menopause brain fog at times will not allow me to process so many questions at the same time.
Oh, apologies.
No, no. Um, I think who I work with now has possibly changed. I've gone through cycles, and you may have experienced that yourself. So whereas I maybe the beginning of my career started with mainstream and then moved into very different communities, as I said, so stroke, cancer, etc. When I got really unwell, I had to give up a lot of that work because I couldn't hold the space I felt well enough for people who themselves are unwell. And so I pulled back from my work with cancer patients, from my work maybe where I really needed to hold a lot of space and support people. And I did that for a couple of years, and I stayed mainly with, for example, my mainstream yoga group. So I have a women's only yoga class that I teach. And I was
Where do you
teaching them a
teach
few
that?
times. Sorry?
Where do you teach the women only yoga class? Is it a
Um,
local
ex-
class?
yes, it is. Sorry about that. I was just reaching out for something.
That's okay.
Yes, I live in between Radlett and St Albans, and I teach in Park Street.
Okay,
So I
super.
teach that there. So the last few years, coming back to what you were saying, there's been a lot of transition. So I pulled back from some work, stayed just with a small amount of work teaching yoga. And then as the breath work and the mindfulness and all of the other aspects of the work that I'm doing today started to come to the forefront, I've been building that side of my business because I feel that that is really where, as I said beforehand, where I feel very much aligned and my soul really wants me to be. So I teach breathwork workshops. I teach a weekly online breath, body, mind class, which is gentle movement combined with breath work. And I do work one to one with people as well. And as I've gained my strength, then I've been able to expand into this and grow with this. But it's been, as I said, it's been a journey of me traveling through different phases and recognizing actually where I'm meant to be and still discovering where I'm meant to be, but trying to go with that. Have I answered most of them?
Yeah, that's who you work with and where you work. So, do you work with women and men?
I find that I work primarily with women, saying that I do, men I find come to me, if they are going to come to me, will be on a one to one. And a lot of the work that I do is around stress management, anxiety. So I find that within that work, then I will sometimes see men coming along, but it's a lot less. Whether it's the yoga classes, the breathwork workshops, or anything, it seems to be primarily women.
Mm, yeah, it does. I think generally yoga attracts women more than it attracts men as a general rule of thumb, but not entirely. So if you had an ideal, like, obviously you're saying you're evolving, you're still kind of feeling into it, and the work with cancer patients and stuff was kind of not something probably that you can sort of, you're not doing it at the moment because for your own reasons that you need to move into doing other work. So ideally, do you have a passion? Do you have a passion for a particular group of people or a particular particular niche, a particular area that you really feel like, yeah, I really would love to do that, and I'm working towards that?
Well, I've already mentioned the stress management, the anxiety, the sleep issues, because I think they're so important and I think they can lead to dis-ease. So hence, if we can manage that beforehand, before we get to a stage where actually the body starts to collapse and say, I can't do this anymore, So I think that for me is one niche in particular that I've been working a lot on the last few years. And I was looking, fun enough, at notes this morning, even from a few years ago, and I can see that it's always there. That thread is always there for me. And I think the other one then today, because I feel so much stronger, is that I want to come back to working more with chronic conditions because of my experience, um, particularly autoimmune conditions. I really feel that I'm meant to be doing more work here as well. And I've been feeling really interesting. You're asking me this question, and now I'm putting it out to the universe. I've been putting it out sometimes when I'm going for a walk or whatever, and to a few people, but now it's going live onto wherever. And I'm putting it out there that I do feel that I am being asked to do this work now.
Brilliant. And you know, this is an interview, but it's also, yeah. I mean, I think I enjoy seeing the gifts in someone, and the thing is, we all have lived experience, right? And when we work from lived experience, this is when the gold comes through. And so the piece for me, for instance, is around my sexual trauma coming up during the pandemic, through going through menopause. And this has been the gold for me in terms of wanting to help more women to overcome shame from sexual trauma. And I think that that's really the best way any of us can work, is to work from lived experience. And when you said to me, that you had an autoimmune disease, and then that's when you moved into the breath work, that seems like, yes, I got a little flutter in my body, because I work from the body. So some people work from the top down, and some people work, depending on where your school of thought is, top down or bottom up. Me, I'm bottom up.
Yeah, me too.
So for me, when you were talking about that, I just got this sort of fluttering in my body, was like, yeah, that's your gold. That's your gold, is that that other people will be attracted to you because you've had that lived experience. And you can get all the certificates in the world about this, that, and the other, and we're all very distracted, and we're all very much still studying, but when it comes down to lived experience, I think that's what people, they want to see how you've overcome those lived experiences, so it's talking into those. So that's one thing, and just picking up what you said about stress and overwhelm, the threads that are coming through for most people. Um, well, to be fair, right now, I mean, we've had a pandemic, we've got two major wars going on, and we're squashed right in the middle of it. We've got these mass solar flares coming from the sun, and we're seeing the aurora borealis from the northern lights coming through. That is actually, these massive solar flares, these massive upgrades of who we be right now. And we are all being upgraded. We are all being asked to step into what is true for us, to step into our purpose in our lives. And so it's, we're all really sort of being, as I say, reweaved. And if you kind of follow the work of Bruce Lipton, and you think about get the word epigenetics,
Epigenetics.
that we can all literally get our DNA rewired, and maybe that's what's happening right now. For some people, that might be a little bit woo-woo, but if anyone knows my work and they're following me, then they know that I bring in all sorts of different elements into my understanding, and I channel and etc. And I can feel this massive upgrade, and that we're all really going through this massive upgrade. The other thing I can feel is, from what you're saying about you, is like you're talking about the things that midlife women go through. So when I went through my massive upgrade, I was going through menopause. Now, we were in a collective trauma at the time, and going through menopause is a kind of trauma, because the body goes through massive upgrade in itself, because we're going into that whole change in our lives. And so for me, I have this belief that the things that you kind of push down, the things that you're talking about, the things that you push down and down and down, into the dark shadows of the lower chakras come up to bite you in the ass. And mine was my historic childhood sexual abuse. For other women, it might be something else. Although I do wonder, to be honest, because one in two women have been, no, one in three women have been sexually traumatized, and if you are, and one in two women have witnessed it or seen sexual violence within their lives. So I do wonder how much actually my theory in life is that most things come from sexual trauma. That's where I'm at. But interestingly, what you're describing to me around stress and overwhelm and working with women, women, is it menopause? Is it perimenopause and then dealing with life after perimenopause into the menopause stage, which is sort of a year in when you stop the bleed, and then people say, "Oh no, I'm past menopause," and you're like, "Well, actually, menopause is from a year, a year after you stop bleeding to the rest of your life, because that's technically menopause." And a part of that is the hormonal change, and we do go into more stress and overwhelm. And we have, as I just said, things going on in the world. We have distractions. So, what do you feel about that?
It's really interesting because I actually got really unwell whilst I was in the throes of perimenopause. So I've had a lot of time to reflect on this as well. And my feelings are exactly like yourself, that the perimenopause actually is again a window of opportunity. So I see it as a window of opportunity, as you said, for things that we may have suppressed, for us to possibly then open the door, look into those shadows and see, can we do something here? So I think depending on, again, what our approach is, how we see things, is also how we can then maybe ride through menopause and beyond. Again, can we take that window of opportunity, like anything else, with the difficulties and challenges it may bring us, and try to do something with it so that it creates a positive change for afterwards and beyond? So that, and as I said, that was also my experience as well. At the same time, they were going on. So I very much see it that way. If we can we embrace it?
That's just really amazing. Yeah, I'm feeling that really strongly, and hearing that from you as well. And actually, I'm doing a talk tonight at the Beaumont for women in menopause, which I'm quite excited about, kind of reframing how we can address menopause. This may come up in conversation, I don't know. I hope it does. I hope it does. And I hope women can see the connection between moving into midlife and the changes that go through in our bodies. They're on every level. They're the mind, body, and spirit, and we are, like I say, getting an upgrade. But I feel like this is the time of the wise woman. This is the time of bringing in that inner wisdom, and it's like a time of rebirth. But before you can rebirth, until you can birth again, you have to die.
Mm.
Something has to die. So we go into that depth, and we go into those dark shadows, and we die, on an emotional level, and then we start to rebuild up who we are. And so for some women, going through midlife can be like just swimming upstream, in a hurricane. It's like, for some women, it's who don't have the understanding and the capacity. Those are the women I really want to reach. I don't know about you, but those women who just, they've dabbled a bit in yoga, and they've gone to a few classes for their physical strength, but sort of haven't actually. From my Facebook feed, you think the whole world understood what we understood, but apparently it's not true. And I've seen it. Yeah, it's true though, isn't it? Because you get your algorithm and you think everyone knows this stuff. No, they don't. So I really want to reach those women, and it sounds like you do too. Those women who just, but they need to go gently. They need to go gently because I don't think I can go in there tonight at the Beaumont and go, right, everyone, who's had the dark shadows come up? Maybe I could, but for some people, I think it might be like, what? So it's kind of like, going slowly and saying, you can, there is hope for you to move step by step, slowly, slowly through just trying some breath work when you feel anxious, going to a yoga class, maybe, in my case, it's the goddess chakra dance journey. It depends, or a bit of Reiki healing, whatever it is. It's like saying to women who are watching this, start with something, start with something. What do you feel about a daily practice? I feel it's imperative to have some form of
So
daily.
do I. I'm always banging on about making a commitment to yourself, about really just having, it's just, as far as I'm concerned, it should be part of our daily lives. It should be interweaved with our daily lives. So 100%. I think that's the only way that we can, it's a bit unfair to say the only, but I think it's one of the most potent ways to create change is when we say, okay, I'm going to do this. This is going to be part of my daily life to create change. And, the practices that we practice in are maybe more subtle than, for example, popping a pill or something else, which is, an immediate. But if we commit, then there is change. Absolutely. I am a firm believer of that.
Mm. Yeah, sadhana, daily practice, something that, changes your state of being. And I try to do it every day. I like try to do the goddess chakra dance journey every day. And I record it so that I have to show up. And then I have people who watch it later and watch it replay. So I have to show up. I've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years now. And it's like, it has definitely changed my life because we're working on so many different levels with it, with whatever we do. We're working on many different levels, and as women going through midlife, we're looking at working on our regulating our nervous system. We're looking at our endocrine system, our hormone system, our muscular system, because we have aches and pains and joint issues. Obviously the endocrine is all about our progesterone, our estrogen levels waning. And we have the answers inside of us, but we kind of look a lot of the time to the pill. And the pill, as in HRT or antidepressants, like, you've got to do what you've got to do. So
Absolutely.
what I'm suggesting is that as women, that we have something alongside that, and then maybe there's other exploratory things. I mean, there's some wonderful things. I've talked some in my other videos, worth looking at the John Hopkins Society around psychedelics, and there's all sorts of things going on. These are top trauma experts using psychedelics, and I wouldn't actually say go and do that, but what I would say is, things are changing. Things are really changing out there, and the average sort of antidepressant or what have you, is kind of, there are alternatives. So I'm not advocating it, but maybe look up what we call microdosing. So there's lots of possibilities with microdosing mushrooms. And at the end of the day, mushrooms are all about the mycelium. They're all about what keeps this planet together. And if we are actually kind of moving in now to this new earth, this awakening time, our connection, we're talking about connection earlier, right? We're talking about being disconnected from ourselves. We're also very disconnected from the planet. And that's why we're in this confusion, and we're in this sort of stress and overwhelm and because our bodies are vibration. Everything is vibration. Our bodies are vibration, and we are sort of stuck in these human bodies while the world is completely sort of changing and reforming. It started with the pandemic and the dolphins in Vienna and everything growing back, and now we're getting all these sort of northern, everything's changing, and we're still in this human form, and we're going into stress and overwhelm, because actually, how do we manage this new earth? How do we manage this new time? So yeah, I'm just kind of pointing to the investigation. John Hopkins Society is a genuine sort of scientific exploration of what we can do outside of antidepressants, as it were. So yeah, so yeah, this is such an exciting conversation. So I've got off into the cosmos now. Sorry about that. Um, but yeah, so let's bring it back to you and where you're at. So is there anything you'd like to add to this conversation that's coming up for you that you really want people to know about you or your work or your principles or some burning desire to share something? This is your chance to speak that truth.
Yeah, I think there's one thing that is really important to me is the fact that we take our breath so much for granted. And because we're breathing all the time and we don't actually have to consciously do anything about our breath, breath work then may seem superfluous. Why should we bother? And I think that's something that I'm battling with at the moment almost, is saying to people, don't ignore the subtle. Don't ignore what's actually there, because from my own experience, breathwork is so profound. It has so many benefits. We can use it in so many different ways that you can't imagine. And so I think it is, yeah, don't look at just what's in front of you and come back to maybe exploring other modalities. And for me, as I said, breathwork's a major one. And just seeing what can it do for me on a regular basis? How can it create change? I think that's the burning thing inside of me that wants to shout out as far as I possibly can.
And you know, breath work at the end of the day, if we're doing it all the time, we are breathing all the time. So, but what we're not doing is breathing into the full capacity of our lungs. So, could you do maybe a little demonstration of either that, breathing fully into our lungs and how we do that, or is there something else within breath work that people could do on a regular basis that's quite simple?
I think there's 2 points that I would like to get over. One is make sure that you are breathing through your nose, because so many people are breathing through their mouth without even realizing this. And because I'm so into breathwork now, one of the classic examples is sometimes I'll see people running and they are huffing and puffing. Now, obviously, when we're doing exercise, there will be a difference in the way that we breathe. But if we come back to restful breathing, i.e., you're sitting somewhere, etc., I think it's so important just to notice for yourself. Is my mouth hanging open? Am I breathing through my mouth or am I breathing through my nose? So that's the first thing. Regarding an exercise as such, what I find is that a lot of people tend to breathe quite shallowly, a lot of upper chest breathing, so they're overusing the accessory breathing muscles. So I think my invite really, and we can do this now for a minute if you want, excuse me, I might have to cough, but is really to become breath observant. So the same way we become self-aware, we become breath aware. How am I actually breathing? Because there is absolutely no point in practicing breathing exercises, techniques, whatever we want to call them, if you have a dysfunctional breathing pattern. And I think this is really important to note as well, because often we'll see promoted, maybe written somewhere, newspapers, etc. Sorry, not social media, but media, yep, sorry, but they'll be talking about a particular exercise. But actually, if you've got no idea about the way that you breathe, whether you have a dysfunctional breathing pattern, you could actually be exasperating something that you're already doing dysfunctionally. And I see this a lot as well. So it comes back again to breath awareness. So as I said, very more than welcome to do it for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just take a moment to, first of all, sit upright, because posture is so important also to the way that we breathe. Maybe taking a moment to become, first of all, body aware. I've automatically closed my eyes. You may wish to do the same, or you may wish to lower the gaze. I'm just starting to feel, before we even go into breath awareness, just the soles of the feet resting on the floor. Maybe parts of my legs touching the chair if you're seated on a chair. Just noticing the curve of your spine and your shoulders. Becoming aware of the back of your head and your face. And bringing your attention towards your nostrils. And just noticing the air coming in and out. You could, of course, take a hand to chest, a hand to belly if you wish. Just making sure that the shoulders are nice and relaxed. Just taking a moment to notice how you breathe. Do you have a calm, smooth breath? Do you tend towards fast breathing? Just noticing. And noticing where maybe you feel movement in your body as you breathe. So just becoming aware even of those couple of elements of breathing, of your own natural breath. Noticing if you're suddenly holding your breath. And then simply letting go, having observed even for that short space of time. Noticing any effect, not only what you've observed cognitively, but any effect also on the body and how you're feeling just by bringing your awareness back to yourself. And then maybe allowing the hands to shift to your lap if you wish, and the eyes to slowly open.
It's just so calming and such a beautiful invitation just to leave the space. And I was leaving the space. I was like, oh, I'm on record. Okay. So it's really lovely, and you have such a lovely voice and such a gentle manner, and that's what is really, really appealing. To just feel into that spaciousness, into that present moment, into that just being in the now, and that being in the now, being in that balance of just being in the present is really, really beautiful. So thank you so much for this lovely conversation. And we have been connected for quite a while through Facebook, and to have this moment of time, even if we never get it again, I hope we will. But just to get to know you a bit better has been an absolute privilege. And we all need to be doing a lot more of this. I feel, getting to know the women that we see on Facebook, who like our posts, who follow our posts, who connect with us, in the ethers, to actually have, a faith and a relationship. So I've really appreciated that today. And can you verbally just tell people where they can find you? I will be adding all your socials and your website to this video.
So firstly, actually, I'd like to say thank you to you as well for allowing me, and it's been wonderful to spend this time with you. Actually, really, really wonderful. So thank you for that, firstly. People can find me easily at my website, so www.staceylandau.com. I'm obviously on all of the social media. Well, not all because I can't face them all, but I am on LinkedIn and Instagram and sometimes on Facebook as well. So easily
Amazing.
find me in that way.
Okay, and all the links will be in with this video. This will be going up onto YouTube and all the socials. So I hope that everyone has enjoyed watching this. I've absolutely loved it. So thank you so much, Stacey. Have an amazing day, an amazing evening. Yes, sat
Thank
now,
you to you too.
sat.
Likewise.
Take care.